Hello, my name is Sergio Feitosa and I am the author and presenter of this training, Design Concepts for Electric Panels, Switchgear, Bus Ducts and Substations. This training was made with a focus in designers of equipment and substation equipment. It is composed of a group of video classes that we hope that cover most of the disciplines which are necessary in the daily life of a designer. We hope that it is useful for you. And this video is the module 6 of the training and corresponds to the chapter Overvoltage and Insulation Coordination. This video will show several aspects of transient and insulation coordination. We'll show the techniques to reduce overvoltage using synchronizers, place-sensitive resistors, surge arresters, and some other means. We'll show why to use higher or lower levels of withstand industrial frequency and impulse voltage. The selection of these values are very important for the economics of substation design. We'll show some aspects of electric fields and distances installations, especially related to IEC standard number 61936. And we'll show also some concepts of high voltage tests like the impulse test, AC voltage test, Corona, and RIV. Effects tests of currents and voltage that occur in the daily life of a substation are, by the order, the currents lower or equal to the rated permanent values of the currents in the circuits, and these currents usually have as a consequence what we call the normal aging of the component, the circuit. Normal aging is something like, let's say, for a complete substation, something like the 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, something like that. We have also the long duration overcurrents, and overcurrents here, in the sense of this video, are currents, let's say, 20%, 30%, 50%, something like this, higher than the currents, the rated permanent currents. These currents, the long duration overcurrents, occur usually from the duration of some few seconds to the duration of some dozens of seconds or even minutes. These long duration overcurrents can create what we call the overloads, and overloads cause temperature rise. When cause temperature rise above certain limits of the materials, can be a source of aging of the material, and the aging, depending on the values of the over temperatures, are things that can be estimated by calculations. We have also the short duration overcurrents that we, and here we mainly refer to the short circuits, which are currents up to duration of some 1 second, 2 seconds, 0.2 seconds. And the magnitude of these currents are something like from 4 times the rated permanent current to something like 30 times the rated permanent current. And the effect of short circuits can be very severe. These short circuit currents can produce very high temperatures, which may cause, for example, the annealing of copper, the bending of copper, or can create also the so-called electrodynamical effects, which are forces very intense caused by the magnetic field created by the current inside the conductors. And this very big force can cause the damage of insulators, busbar systems, the bending, and so on. And in our case, which is the focus of this video, we can have as the effect of voltage the over voltage. And we use two terms here, the long duration over voltage and the short duration over voltage. Short duration for us, in the sense of this video, will be something of the durations around microseconds. Let's say the duration of the so-called impulse, atmospheric impulses, switching impulses. This is what we will call short duration here in this video. And long duration over voltage will be over voltage with a duration of some seconds up to some minutes, which can be caused by a series of reasons that we will demonstrate along the video. This over voltage can have as consequence from the immediate failure of some components to the isolation aging of some parts. This figure, we can have one idea of what we call here over voltage. Let's take as reference what is in the upper right side of this figure, where 1 per unit of voltage, let's call the 1 PU, will be the peak value of the phase to neutral voltage of the circuit. Let's assume that this is the value 1. Then for atmospheric impulses, for example, we see in the left side of the figure, we have durations around some microseconds, something in the order of magnitude of 50 microseconds, in this range here, more or less. And the magnitude of these voltages are 6 times higher than the value 1 that I showed in the upper right side of the figure. For the switching impulses, we have an order of magnitude of 4 times the value of the 1 P per unit voltage, and the durations are of the order of magnitude of some 2, 3, 4, 5, 100 milliseconds. Then these values are represented in laboratory by some voltage waves like 2.5 by 2,500 microseconds, as we will show in some minutes in the next slides. And we have also here the temporary overvoltages that are overvoltage with the durations of seconds to even 2 minutes. And the range of these overvoltage are something like 1.2, 1.3, 1.5 times the rated voltage, the 1 per unit voltage of that circuit. We have another visualization of the comparison between the durations, and you see that for example, for the atmospheric impulse wave, you have a very big wave, but the duration of it is very small. And for the 60 Hertz wave, which is the sinusoid that you can see in the figure, you have a much bigger duration. However, the value of the peak voltages are much lower. It's something like the impact of one over voltage is more or less proportional to the area inside covered by the figure of that over voltage. Here in this interesting figure, you see more or less what happens when one impulse voltage is coming through one transmission line and trying to arrive to a transformer, which is in this case is protected by a lightning arrestor, as you can see in the right side of the figure. Then you have, if you look to the left side of the figure, you have the sinusoid, the rated voltage sinusoid, which is the curve number A in this figure, the sinusoid, and superposed to it, you see the impulse which is coming. Then, when this signal arrives to the transformer or to the lightning arrestor, you have a sum of the two voltages, the rated voltage of the circuit the 60 Hz frequency in this example, summed up with the impulse voltage that is numbered here as figure G. What we have, the function of the lightning arresters are exactly to reduce that very big peaks that can happen and can arrive to the transformer. The idea is that big overvoltages will not arrive to the transformer and be, let's say, filtered by the lightning arrester. Laboratories, we use some to do a test which desires to be representative of what happens in the network. We use the so-called impulse waves for atmospheric impulse and for switching impulse. These waves are produced by the so-called impulse generators, which are banks of capacitors having in series some resistors, and adjusting the values of these capacitors and resistors, we can produce an impulse wave which is, as well as possible, representative of what happens in the network. For the impulse waves, for the atmospheric impulse waves, the normal shape of the wave applied during testing, during impulse tests, is the wave 1.1 by 50 microseconds, as you can see in the figure. The front of the wave has a duration of 1.2 microseconds, and 50 microseconds is the duration up to the point that the voltage return to 50% of its value. And for the switching impulse, the wave which representative of this is the so-called 250 by 2500 microseconds. And this wave is also used to be applied in testing for the so-called switching impulse tests. The waves related to switching impulses and normal operations in line have very high frequency transients. Then here are some examples of the frequency of these transients that occur, for example, in the connection of transformers to the network, we have transients around 1 kilohertz. In the phenomenon of resonance in iron, we have also something like 1 kilohertz. For the transient recovery voltage, which occur when one circuit breaker is opening a short circuit, in the case of terminal faults, we have a wave, overvoltage wave in the frequency around 20 kilohertz, and so on. For GIS switching isolators, we have very, very high frequency in the range of 50,000 kilohertz. And these are terrible waves for the insulation media in these installations. As you see, this is only to give us one idea. The frequency of these transients is very related, and it's completely related to the inductance, capacitance, and resistance of the transmission line and the components involved in the transmission line or near it. And one impulse voltage on lightning, for example, arrive to one transmission line. Suppose that it is over the cable of one of the phases of the line. It divides into directions. One part of the impulses comes moving to the right side, the other one to the left side, and as the impulse is moving along the line, the magnitude of it is damped, is reduced, and if it's small, it arrives to the transformers or lightning arresters of the substation, it will arrive with one small value. However, if the strike is very near to the substation or at a certain distance, even with this damping of the overvoltage, a very big value can arrive to the place, and if not well designed, this can have as consequence a failure in the isolation of transformers, reactors, or other components. When one of these waves arrive to the substation, arriving, for example, to one transformer or to some other kind of wave impedance medium, the part of the wave is reflected back to the line, and part of the wave continually goes ahead. In such a situation that, in some case, the distance of the lightning arresters to the transformers that need to be protected shall be very well calculated to avoid that these reflections produce a bad effect. The temporary voltages, we have as first information that they are normally, as I mentioned, they have a duration about from some few seconds and can arrive even to some minutes, depending on the case, but they have a frequency very near to the power frequency or sustain the harmonics, poorly damaged. Let's say the shape of the wave is something more or less like one power frequency wave. The range of it is something of 10%, 20%, or even 50% higher than the value of the normal voltage in the network. The duration, as I mentioned before, is of some few seconds in general, depending on the type of system voltage control. Then, for example, if there is some kind of event that produce an acceleration of the generators, an overvoltage will be produced, and if the voltage control system is very fast, you can avoid that this overvoltage arrive to a very big value. Some of the causes of the temporary overvoltage are the sudden loss of load. We'll show this in the next slide. Some unbalanced faults to hertz, the disconnection of inductive loads, the connection or disconnection of capacitive loads also. And we will give some examples in the next slides. Is an example of temporary overvoltage caused by a sudden loss of load. For example, if you are in one system which is very isolated, you have generally only one generator of the site, and one single line, and this line connected to a single load. And in the case that a fault occur, a short circuit occur, and the circuit is opened, you can have the acceleration of these generators, and the overvoltage, the voltage applied in the terminals of the line and in some components can grow very fast if the system used to protect, to avoid this acceleration is so slow. Then in this case, when you have a more meshed system, a more compensated system, the overvoltage will be much lower. When you have low compensation, the overvoltage will be higher. The case of temporary overvoltage caused by unbalanced faults to hertz is a very common case that we have in our cities. Let's suppose I live here in Rio de Janeiro. Here in the summer we have some big rains, big winds, and in the moment of the big winds, the trees touch the cables, and in this case you may have one single phase short circuit. This short circuit will occur if you are using, for example, an expulsion type fuse to open it. You open one of the phases, and the other two phases will be maintained energized. And in this case, the voltage will go up in the other phase. This can give rise to a temporary overvoltage that eventually can damage some equipment, electrodomestics and things like this installed inside the house. Here you show the switch impulses now, and the main case, the most famous case is the interruption of inductive currents. And this occurs normally when one circuit breaker is called to open one circuit with a very big short circuit or a smaller value of short circuits. And in the moments of the interruption, in the exact moment that the current is passing through zero and is interrupted by the circuit breaker, a big overvoltage appears in the terminals of the circuit breaker, and you can see this in the figure in the left side, where you have the dark curve shows the one overvoltage superposed to the sinusoid, and this overvoltage that we call transient recovery voltage can cause some problems, can cause the failure of the circuit breaker, or can cause discharge near the region where the circuit breaker is installed. And each case is one case for this. And here we only want to show the classical case, which of the interruption of inductive currents. This is another case of switch impulse, and a classic case. Every time we speak about interruption of capacitive loads, people become damaged. People which lives and work with substations know that interruption of capacitive loads, and capacitive loads is not only to interrupt one capacitor. For example, if you are interrupting one line, one open line, one line not charged, you are interrupting a big capacitance. If you are interrupting a long length of underground cable, you are interrupting one capacitive load. And in all the cases, you have one inherent case of a big 2 per unit voltage appearing just after the moment of the current interruption. And that is the main reason why if you are interrupting one capacitive current, you have basically fundamentally one 2 per unit voltage, 2 PU voltage applied to the circuit breaker or to the fuse or to the equipment which is open in the circuit. One could be one breaking switch or anyone. You have some kind of overvoltage that, depending of the case and depending of the combination and depending of if the equipment is or not specified to break this, can give you problems during the interruption. Other examples of the same thing, the interruption of capacitor loads, and we have here 2 examples, the back-to-back capacitor, the low load, the interruption of no load lines. And one case which is very important for switching impulses is that when you are interrupting the capacitive loads, you may have that 2 per unit voltage in the interruption of along the interruption of the circuit. And this big overvoltage just after the moment that the circuit breaker is doing the interruption can cause what we call the reignition. And if you have the reignition of the circuit, that is, if the current starts to circulate again, you can have a kind of process in which the voltage goes higher, and can lead to the failure of the circuit breaker in this circumstance. Example of interruption of capacitive circuits, and this is the case of short line fault, where you have some capacitance, you have a small value of inductance in the circuits, and this combination of values, you remember that I showed minutes ago one equation for the frequency of the transients, depending of the reactances, the inductance, the capacitance, and resistance. And in this case, the combination of these values and of the reflection of the waves can lead to circumstances in which a shape of wave more or less like the one that I show in the figure will happen, and these very fast transients can be bad for the circuit breaker, can avoid that the circuit breaker break correctly the current if it's not designed for this circumstance. Another kind of transient that we call the inrush current is not an overvoltage transient, it's an overcurrent, because in certain situations, when you open one circuit with one power transformer, the core may remain magnetized, and in certain circumstances, when you close again the circuit to put the transformer again in the circuit without load, only without the secondary open, you can have, even without having loads, you can have currents as high as 4 times the rated current of the circuit. And to have this this is something like a short circuit that will produce a voltage drop, will produce all the effects of one short circuit, and even can give rise, if this operation is very frequent, it can give rise to some kind of aging inside the transformer. Here is another effect, which is the inrush of capacitive currents, and this occurs when you are closing one circuit breaker or one switch to energize one capacitor bank. In the first moments, depending on the point in the wave that the circuit will be closed, you have a performance more or less like the capacitor was in short circuit. And this can give rise to a very, very big current, like the shapes that we see, we show in these two figures. And these currents can be very high with a very high frequency. And for example, for current transformers do not like this kind of shape of short circuit wave. This is not a conventional short circuit at 6 Hz. This is a kind of short circuit happening in a very big, very high frequency. Something in this example here, we are speaking about one current of around 2000 amperes and a frequency of 7 kilohertz. And these wave shapes can be severe for current transformers and some other items in the substation. I think that we already mentioned before, the connection of no load lines. That is, this is the closing of one circuit breaker, which is S in this figure here, over one big capacitive loads, which is the open line in this case. For the overvoltage control, there are several strategies to do this, depending on the case, depending on the costs involved, and so on. You may have the use of pre-insertion resistors, which are normally used in circuit breakers, to, let's say, the basic function of these kinds of control is to change the value of the frequency and the crest values of overvoltage that will appear. Let's say when we are putting one pre-insertion resistor, we are going to the equation that I showed before about the frequency of the transient recovery voltage of the overvoltage to increase the value of the resistance, and in this way reducing the values of the overvoltage or reducing the frequency of it. For lightning arresters, the idea is just to cut the value of the overvoltage above a certain level, which can be accepted by the equipment that is protected, For capacitors, in the terminal of circuit breakers, we are doing the same thing. Let's say we are putting one C of capacitor value in that equation that I showed you before to reduce the value of the rate of rise of the transients that will come just after the energization or opening of the line. There are also the possibility of the shielding of substations in line against lightning using ground wires, protection rods, and many other common systems. So-called synchronizers, which are dispositives that have the function of to control the angle of closing or opening of the circuit breaker, which is protecting the circuit over a certain angle of the voltage wave. You see in that figure here that there is one angle phi. Depending of the angle where you close the circuit breaker, or you open the circuit breaker, depending on this angle, with calculations, you can see that you can make the overvoltage that will appear to be overvoltage or even overcurrents can be lower depending of the control of this angle. And the use of a synchronizer is related to this. You try to control the angle of one operation that is to be done with a certain periodicity. Doing this, you reduce the overvoltage. Reducing the overvoltage in a certain way, you are increasing the time life of the components involved in that line. Here in this example, you have two examples. You have in the left side the closing of one circuit breaker over one circuit with inductance and resistance. Depending of the closing angle, phi, depending of that, you have one very asymmetrical current in the very beginning, or you may have one almost symmetrical current. And this is something to remember, because the higher is the asymmetry of a current that is closing a short circuit, the higher is the value of the crest value, the higher will be the electrodynamical effects that will occur in the circuit. The forces that will act will be much higher if the current is asymmetrical, as in this figure. Then, when we control that angle of closing, when we can control, of course, this, when we have control about it, you can produce a less severe consequence for the circuit. In the right side, we have the switching of a capacitive loads, and you can see here that the high frequency current that will appear after the closing, depending on the closing angle, you may have one very hard transients applied to the circuit, or a very easy transient applied to the circuit. You see the two figures in the top and in the bottom parts. The only difference between these two circuits is that the closing angle was different in each case. There is another example of the closing of one circuit. If I'm right, in this case, we are speaking about one inrush current. And in the first case, depending on the angle, a certain angle was used to close the circuit, the angle of the point over the wave, and we had something like 15 amps in the circuit. And in the other case, we are speaking about exactly the same circuit, the same transformer, but the closing angle was different. And in this case, we had a current which was as high as 500, as you can see. The same circuit, the only difference is the closing angle. Then, of course, if you can avoid to apply these high currents in the circuit, it's much better than you remain applying all day long along the life of the transformer. Example more, in this case we are telling about the switching of capacitive loads and no load lines, and you see in both cases in the figures 600 kV, 350 50 kV. These are the same circuits. This is a simulation made with the software HEP, and you see that in the first case you have practically the double of the overvoltage voltage that will occur in the second case, only by the reason that we control the closing angle before doing the switching of that capacitive loads. Then you can do this in a more comfortable way when you are using one synchronizer. Synchronizers are usually bought with the circuit breaker only for voltages higher than some 230 kV. For, let's say, 130 kV circuit breaker, 69 kV circuit breaker, there is a feeling of many designers that it's not good to buy the synchronizer because it will be expensive related to the price of the circuit breaker. When you do economical calculations, we do a serious calculation. In many cases, you can detect that even in lower voltage systems, voltage like 69 kV, even 34 kV, a synchronizer may be one interesting solution to increase the time life of and reduce the aging of the components inside the circuit. In this table, you see the same values of minimum clearance in air, or minimum phase to earth clearances, minimum phase to phase clearance, and for these values for each of the voltage classes higher than 245 kV class. The radio influence voltage test, RIV, and the concept is the following. When an equipment is energized by a voltage higher than the rated voltage, it will generate a certain amount of high-frequency pulses, and this is generated or by the equipment or also by lines. And these pulses are propagated through conductors or irradiated through the medium that is near the emission point. These pulses interfere with the radios, especially on the AM bands. If the level of these high-frequency pulses is not so high, let's say something for equipment around 1000 microvolts, measured in the way that I will explain after, this is acceptable from the point of view of the IC standards. In laboratory, what is measured are the propagated pulses. And the test that is performed is something like in the figure in the right side, where we have the green parts, where we have one equipment under test, which is fed by one AC transformer, where we inject a voltage like, suppose, 120% or 130% of the rated voltage of the system. Then, as the voltage is higher, a certain amount of high-frequency pulses is created and is circulated through the filter, and through one resistor near the emission points. The voltage drop in this resistor is measured by one RIV meter, which is basically one voltmeter which will measure a certain level of voltage that will be compared with the values prescribed in the technical standards. Then this is basically the RIV test. We arrive to the last slide of this presentation, of this video, and here we present some final comments, remembering some points that we mentioned in the slides before. Okay, the transient insulation coordinated study, when made specifically for that substation, for one specific substation, allow economies in relation to the condition that we use values based on other substations of the same company. The point is that if you have different site conditions, you may have different levels of insulation necessary to each one of them. Okay, it's a normal practice to use the same levels more or less in most of the sites within one certain company. To use lower levels of withstand industrial frequency and pulse voltage is a frequent consequence of these studies. Okay, if you study with more details, you may detect that there are differences between the substations, and if you wish, you may use different values within the same company. The economical assessments may motivate the use of synchronizers, which are, as we explained, dispositives to reduce overvoltage. Normally, these equipments are used in systems of 230 kV and higher. At this level, people understand that, let's say, the cost of the equipment is not comparable to the cost of the circuit breakers or the protection means that we have in the system. But if you do a serious economical assess, in many cases, the benefits that are generated by the synchronizers can be so high in terms of reduction, of avoiding the reduction of the time life of the equipment, that even at lower voltage classes like 145 or 72.5 kV, they can be quite acceptable to use. We have one interesting document as reference, which is the brochure SIGRE, the very recent one, is published in 2018. The brochure SIGRE 740, and especially in chapter 5, we have a very big number of good suggestions for the equipment selection for substations. Also in this brochure, we have one interesting chapter about, which is chapter 12, which speak about training. And this is very rare to find in technical documents that we see in the sector. And to conclude, IEC 6219336 is a great document to understand most of the aspects about dielectric insulation, distances installations, and many other aspects like this. It's a very standards usually are not good to explain the why of the things, but this IEC 61936 is a very didactic standard, and it's a recommended lecture for people. Then we arrived to the last slide of this presentation, and we thank you very much for your attention, and we hope to see you again in the next video class of this training. Thank you very much.